Not even 15 plays combined for these two guys.
And that's why they had 38 combined yards between them. That's also another thing, too. They're supposed to be able to stop the run and produce rushing yards, and they couldn't do either one. And that's why they were miserable in Buffalo.
I'm telling you right now, it's only one game, but you look at their schedule. They have the Raiders coming up.
Yikes.
And in addition to their traditional opponents,
Dolphins on the first home game of the year, which I might get tickets to go see.
Yeah.
It's really – but in the end, it was terrible. It's going to be a long season. What about the Giants? Oh, third straight year.
That's another atrocity.
Third straight year. They opened Sunday Night Football against Dallas in Jerry World, and all they could muster on offense is a combined 1, 2, 3 measly points. 3 measly points. Believe me, there's some expletives, but this is a family network, so I'm not going to go there. But believe me, as a New Yorker, it was sad to watch them. As a football fan, it was depressing to watch them play the way they did. But
why did the Cowboys outscore the Giants 19-3 in this game? Well, let's count the ways.
The first half was terrible. How many yards?
Constantly
yards.
Going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out.
Downs.
How about the fact that the Giant running game consisted of a grand total of 16 yards by Paul Perkins, 14 yards by Orleans Darkwa, overall 35 yards on the ground.
How about underutilizing Brandon Marshall, only targeting the guy twice and one catch late in the game when it didn't mean anything? You know, you go out and sign Brandon Marshall to be your red zone threat, right? Well, why aren't you even using him? Even if you're not in the red zone, use him.
And he was open a couple of times, and Eli Manning did not see him whatsoever.
That's also due to the fact that the offensive line is not giving him enough time.
That's another thing. The offensive line is deplorable.
The left side, we've talked about so many times in the show, which has been a weakness, especially last year with Eric Flowers, and it's continuing again.
And Eric Flowers continues to be a complete and utter bust.
But as for the Cowboys, what a game for Ezekiel Elliott, 104 yards.
104 yards on 24 carries.
Witten breaks the all-time franchise Cowboys record for most receiving yards. Better than Michael Irvin and every legendary Cowboy that's come on that team. And in 15 years, he stayed loyal to one team.
Yeah.
That's rare in this.
You don't see that in the NFL anymore, being loyal to one team.
Nope.
You don't see that in professional sports anymore. Hell, you don't even see that in the college game because of so many guys transferring from one school to another.
So those were your Week 1 games. Let's get into last night. Houston went to visit Cincinnati in the jungle on short day's rest, and the Texans came out with a 49-yard run by Deshaun Watson. They won 13-9.
And how bad has it gotten for the Cincinnati Bengals now? Not only have they not scored a touchdown in the first 2 games of this season, they've already fired their offensive coordinator, Ken Zampese. So now they've made the quarterback coach, Bill Lazor, the new offensive coordinator, which means he's going to have double duty managing Red Dalton and the rest of that offense.
You know, Bill Lazor used to be in the Jets organization years ago as the quarterback coach. And they should have kept him. And he bounced around to Buffalo and other teams. Believe me, the Jets, I think, made a mistake not keeping him on as the offense. Anyway, Giants, Lions, Monday Night Football, opener in MetLife Stadium for the Giants.
This is such a critical game for the Giants right now. After the atrocity of being held to 3 points, especially with the weapons that they have at quarterback and at receiver, the Giants are now going up against the Lions team that is not great defensively. They were good against Arizona in the second half, but traditionally they have not been great defensively at all.
But
this is the game where the Giants really need to take advantage of their opponent. And in this case, get the ball on the ground. Compliment Eli Manning. And they better hope that OBJ is going to be in uniform for this one, because if not, then they're going to have to go with the combination of Brandon Marshall and Sterling Shepard and et al. Once again.
And Rhett Ellison, you know, who they got in the offseason too. But the thing is, Just because you got a lead in the second half doesn't mean anything when it comes to Matthew Stafford. You got to keep the pedal to the metal against Detroit.
Which means try and put together a consistent pass rush against the guy.
Yep. Otherwise, he'll make you pay easily. And with guys like Kenny Golladay, that's where I think there's going to be Landon Collins is going to be really watching for Kenny Golladay this week. So look out for that matchup. I'm going with Detroit because Detroit simply is a better complete team this year than especially defensively. Haloti Ngata, he's going to have 2-3 sacks on that left side. Look for him to get a bunch of plays. Now, New York Jets visiting the Oakland Raiders, 4 o'clock game, CBS. And I'll tell you this, if Shady McCoy can get 110 yards on that defense, I shudder to think what Beast Mode is going to do. Because last week, in the first game in a Raiders uniform, he had 87 yards against the Titans. He's going to do a lot more damage against this Jets defense.
I would see him maybe breaking 200 yards on the ground against that Jet defensive line, which, although good, got really shredded by LaShawn McCoy last week.
Combined, they gave up 10 yards. They were 10 yards shy of 200 rushing yards they gave up against Buffalo. I don't think the Jets are going to be prepared.
Not only that, but the Jets never, ever play well in Oakland. I think they've scored 1 victory lifetime in Oakland, and that's going back to the AFL.
And the last time they played each other was 2015. Derek Carr had 4 touchdowns in that 34-20 victory. It's going to be even worse. I have the Raiders. I'm sorry. I cannot pick the Jets in good conscience. Now,
yeah, I like the Raiders also. I mean, just too much of a disparity talent-wise.
The teacher, Andy Reid, versus the student, Doug Peterson. That's right. Chiefs, Eagles, Arrowhead, loud environment. These teams know each other very well. Let's not forget, Peterson was with Reid in Green Bay and Philly as a player, and was with Reid as in the front or on the sidelines in Kansas City and Philadelphia. So right there, they know each other inside and out. They have the exact same defenses. They do the same West Coast offense. You're basically going to see mirror images of each other. I think what it's going to come down to is really which defense will make the big play in the secondary. And I'll be honest, Marcus Peters is probably going to have a field day against Carson Wentz. I'm sorry to say this, even though Wentz had a good week last week, but let's not forget they were playing Washington. They're going to go up against a much tougher team that just chomped at the bit against New England. New England.
And meanwhile, the Chiefs are going up against a team that's not even close to being in the stratosphere of the Patriots, the defending champions. But I'd be really careful with the Eagles if I'm the Chiefs. The Eagles can explode offensively at any time, especially with Wentz at quarterback. And now his 2 new toys that he's got with in each side of the slot.
And if I'm the Chiefs defense, no, actually the Eagles defense, I would want to keep Kareem Hunt inside the tackles, because he only had 3 rushes on 11 yards last week against New England. As opposed to on the outside, he had 14 carries he rushed 14 times for 137 yards. So the key, you keep Kareem Hunt inside, and you then have to force you take that part of the Chiefs' offense away, and I think it will be even difficult. But don't also forget about Tyreek Hill. He can make you pay either on the run, he can do end-around plays. They're going to even expand the playbook this year with him probably on the outside. So I do not see the Eagles in any way winning this game. I'm going with the Chiefs.
Tough game to call. When you think about it, Kansas City is actually slightly better at the QB spot. And they're also head and shoulders above anyone else at running back. But defensively, I think the Eagles can hold their own in this one. But this is just way too close to call.
So I could see you're going Chiefs.
Yeah, I'll pick Kansas City in this one, but with extreme caution here.
This game, probably one of the biggest games of the week. Falcons, Packers.
Prime time.
Debut of Mercedes-Benz Dome with that incredible retractable roof, first of its kind. And the crazy thing about this game, 8 months ago, these two teams faced each other in the NFC title game. And the Falcons basically massacred the Packers. The Packers were coming off an 8-game winning streak regular season and postseason going into this matchup 8 months ago, and the Falcons dashed any hopes that Packers had with a 44-21 victory. Now, this time around, the Packers are looking for some revenge. They had a big victory against Seattle last week. Now they want to go into the Falcons' home court, and they're going against a Falcons team that just barely won in Chicago the way they did.
Yeah.
Now, if I am the Packers, this is the week where they gotta keep a good eye, their defense, on Austin Hooper. Their secondary's got to do a good job because Chicago gave up an 88-yard touchdown pass. Packers cannot make the same mistake. Now, if you're the Falcons week defensively, on the other hand, you got to keep your eye out on both Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
I think Devontae could have a huge day, especially whoever lines up against Desmond Trufant. Look for that matchup.
I'm curious to know what the Falcons can do offensively against a team like the Packers, who've prided themselves on playing great defense. Maybe they should think about using a no-huddle offense, see if they can keep that Pack D on their heels, so to speak. As far as the other side of the ball, if I'm the Falcons, I would do anything to try and put a rush on Aaron Rodgers and keep him in the pocket, so to speak, because with his athletic ability, he can make plays at any time.
I think this is going to come down to field goal play, and Matt Bryant, I think, will get the game-winning field goal. I'm going with Falcons.
I like Green Bay in this one.
All right. Now the next game at Mile High Stadium, the Cowboys-Broncos. This is one of the best matchups of the week.
Easily one of the two best games of the entire afternoon right now. A Cowboys squad that came off a big win against a division rival. A Broncos squad also winning against a division rival. But when you think about it, the Cowboys are just head and shoulders above anybody else better at quarterback. And I think this is why I like the Cowboys to win in this game.
I like the Cowboys too, but it's going to be tough, especially they're going to one of the toughest environments, for one thing. They got Ronald Leary, who is now playing offensive lineman for the Broncos. So if he's even able to play, if he does, he's going to want to get some revenge in this game against his old team. But, yeah, I got the Cowboys winning because Ezekiel Elliott is going to be a nightmare for that Broncos defense to try to stop.
If I'm the Broncos, though, I do something to attack that Cowboy D because that Cowboy D can be vulnerable.
How about the Steel Curtain, the Purple People Eaters in Pittsburgh? Granted, the Purple People Eaters were in the 70s, but I'm going to call them that. Vikings, Steelers in Pittsburgh. This is a classic matchup.
Yeah. But then again, you also have to consider who the quarterbacks are. And who would you rather have, Ben Roethlisberger or Sam Bradford? I'll take Big Ben any day. That's why I like the Steelers in this one.
I like the Steelers in this one, and I think we're going to see a lot more of Le'Veon Bell. Last week, we got to keep in mind, he just came off his holdout and got very little touches. They didn't want it. They wanted to ease him in. Now this week, we're going to see him unleashed, and for that reason, there's no way that Viking defensive line is going to be able to stop him. Granted, they have some good defensive players, especially Anthony Barr and Xavier Rhodes, but still, I like Le'Veon Bell and the Steelers. Now, the Patriots, the sleeping giant, coming off a humiliating 42-27 loss on the opener of the 2017 season to the Chiefs. The Saints losing on Monday night in Minnesota. Both these teams face the prospect of an 0-2 start.
This has the potential to be maybe a 40-36 or 45-41 type of game because both of these teams can explode at any time.
Well, they got gunslingers for quarterbacks. Great arms, good receiving weapons. So you have Mike Thomas and Brandon Cooks. Former teammates, now adversaries. Yeah. Who's going to have the best receiving day of the two? That's where whoever is defending them, whoever can defend one of these players the best, their team will win. And I'll be honest, Brandon Cooks is looking to get some revenge on the team that traded him before the draft for draft picks.
And in this case, Brandon Cooks would love nothing more than to stick it to his old team. Let's face facts. New Orleans D is just way too weak.
And inexperienced.
I'm picking the Patriots in this one.
Me too. I just, for the same reason, that defense is still trying to find its way. So I can't, in good conscience, pick the the Saints, but I'll tell you, it's going to be an offensive showdown. That's two great quarterbacks. 35th meeting of these two rivals. That's right. I'm talking about 49ers, Seahawks. So this is a classic 37th regular season meeting, classic rivalry, but at the same time, there's such a disparity between these two teams. The Seahawks are head and shoulders above the 49ers at quarterback, at defense, in every which way. That's why I'm going with the Seahawks, especially the fact that they are playing at the 12th man. There's no way the 49ers, who scored a measly, both teams who only had field goals, but this time the Seahawks are going to attack. Doug Baldwin is going to be feasting on that secondary of the 49ers.
Yeah, I like Seattle in this one as well. This is a group of men playing against a group of boys when you think about it.
Now, Sean McDermott is the one person who has anything in common with the Bills and Panthers. Why? Sean McDermott spent 7 years with this team, the last 3 of which as an offensive coordinator with the Panthers. This year, he's the new head coach, the Buffalo Bills. And already, week 1, he gets a 21-12 victory to start off his new career with them. Now, he is tasked with taking his team into a very tough environment with a tough quarterback. The weapons that, if you compare offensively, Carolina has the edge, especially with Christian McCaffrey. He's going to have a hell of a day, and I think we're going to see some wildcat formation plays too with him. Because he's been known, even in Stanford, he can actually throw at times if needed. So watch out for a lot of trickery with Carolina, because they don't want Sean McDermott to have any idea what they're going to do offensively. Because he's been, like I said, he's been with the team the last 7 years before the season. So they're going to try and do some things to confuse Sean to make sure he has no idea what plays are coming through the pipeline. So I'm going with Carolina simply to win this at home. I think they're going to, and let's not forget, the Panthers compared to the Jets, there's no comparison.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea about Christian McCaffrey's potential, his debut against the Niners, 47 yards on 13 carries, 5 catches, 38 yards, and he also returned 3 punts. If he could just warm up, that was pretty much a warm-up for him going up against San Francisco. Think what would happen if he were to go up against a team like Buffalo, a team that's not very polished offensively, especially at quarterback, a team that is relying on defense right now to try and get them above water, to be honest with you. Let's see what kind of test he can make against a much tougher defense in Buffalo.
Titans, Jaguars, AFC South rivals. Jaguars had a huge victory in Houston 29-7, but mostly because of the 10 sacks the defense had against a Titans team that had some questionable calls. Again, onside kick in the first play, very questionable. And both running backs were held under 50 yards rushing for each of them. That's terrible when you got guys like DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. They have to have a better day on the ground, but look what they're being asked to against a very tough defensive line. You got Dante Fowler and the new toy Calais Campbell, and then A.J. Bowie didn't have such a great first game since he was acquired in the offseason, but I think he's gonna have a good defensive day in at secondary for the Jags. I just do not see the Jaguars actually losing this. I think they're going to win this game at home, despite what they had to go through this week. They had to be held in Houston because of what happened with Hurricane Irma. Their normal routine was thrown off a bit, but they did return earlier this week. It's going to be an emotional homecoming for sure, and I feel for the people of Jacksonville, what they're going through, especially the flooding that went there. But I think the Jaguars are going to lift their spirits this week, and they're going to have a hell of a performance. I go with Jacksonville and with Doug Maroney's team. Now, Washington, L.A., the one thing in common, Sean McVay was the offensive coordinator for this team. So he knows Kirk Cousins inside and out. And now he's the head coach for the Rams in L.A. at the Coliseum. The Rams are coming off an impressive victory, but against Scott Tolzien and the Colts.
Yeah, let's see what they can do against someone who's slightly better like Kirk Cousins. He had a real disappointing effort against the Eagles, but this time I think he has a chance to really lick his chops, because are the Rams as good as they were defensively in that Colt game, or was that just an aberration? I would like to think that it's an aberration.
I'm going this week. Originally, I was going with the Rams, and I'm still going to stick with them. Look at the weapons. You got Cooper Kupp, who had a good debut with the team, Sammy Watkins, Robert Woods. And they have very good weapons, and of course Tavon Austin. And we didn't see much of him in the first. We saw him do some plays here and there. I think he's gonna have a return. Watch for that to happen on special teams. So I'm going with the Rams. Dolphins will have their first game of the year because Hurricane Irma unfortunately canceled their first game of the season, so they're gonna have to make that up week 11 against the Buccaneers. But they get to go on the road to play the LA Chargers.
Yeah, this is going to be the Chargers' first game in Los Angeles as the Chargers since 1960.
That's crazy to think that long. But I'll be at the 27,000 capacity seat StubHub Center, a soccer stadium. Nonetheless, the Dolphins, though, have Jay Cutler coming in to start at quarterback. I'm going Dolphins, actually, this week on the road.
You want to hear a really funny yet embarrassing story?
Well, we got a few games, so maybe we can,
Well, long story short, there's this big Charger fan who paid 5 figures to have an advertisement up in Los Angeles that said, "No one freaking cares," in reference to the Chargers. Let's see how much they're going to draw at a 27,000 seat soccer stadium. If they can't fill up that stadium, you know this is a mistake going to LA.
It was a mistake before they even came to LA. It was a mistake in the last 2 years. They had to decide this. They should have stayed in San Diego. They should have tried to work out a deal and get a new stadium. But of course, the Spanos family and the city of San Diego are to blame for this. And I'll be honest, the residents of San Diego, you have some part in that blame too. Now, Bears, Buccaneers. Mike Glennon was the quarterback the last 3 years. Not many starts for this Buccaneers team. But for the Bears, since he signed a 3-year, $45 million contract, they were an earshot, a touchdown away from victory against Atlanta, and Jordan Howard dropped it to 1. While the Buccaneers, like the Dolphins, couldn't play week 1 because of Hurricane Irma.
Mm-hmm.
So Jameis Winston and the Buccaneers are ready and reeling to go.
And also, Jameis Winston is better at quarterback than Mike Glennon is.
And look at the weapons he has. Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans. Better than what you... They have a better receiving core than what Chicago has. They barely have anything. Kendall Wright, are you kidding me?
Getting Deshaun Jackson was such a huge lift for Jameis Winston. Now he's got a much more established receiver to work with. Tampa's going to be a real good team to watch this season. That's why I like the Buccaneers in this one.
Me too, my man. Me too. And you know what? That HBO Hard Knocks really showed another side of Jameis that we never ever saw.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's becoming a brighter, smarter young man than what he was in his Florida State days.
Well, let's see if he can keep that behavior in check because he wasn't necessarily a choir boy when he was at Florida State.
Well, how about Cardinals-Colts? Remember, talk about reunion. Bruce Arians, 2012, was the interim head coach for Chuck Pagano while he was undergoing treatment for leukemia and helped this team to the postseason. And because of his efforts with the Colts that year, got a 5-year deal to be the Cardinals head coach.
And both of these guys could be on the chopping block, if not at the end of the year, then maybe during the year, because their jobs are really on the line right now. It's critical for these teams to come up with a big, big victory. And you consider Jacoby Brissett, who just got traded to the Colts, is now going to be the de facto starter because because Andrew Luck is still going to be out a little bit longer. Jacoby Brissett is a really talented kid. We saw what he could do with the Patriots. But at the same time, Carson Palmer is a seasoned veteran, and he's got Larry Fitzgerald, who seems to defy Father Time working with him. The only problem is they don't have David Johnson in the backfield, so that's really going to hurt the Cardinals. As far as the Colts, how much longer can Frank Gore continue?
I think he can go on for some. He still has some juice in his legs, and you have this the rookie too as well. That so they have a really good Marlon Mack. So they do have some. They have a good combination in running back for the Colts because Marlon Mack is the future starter for the team for sure, and he's got a great veteran to learn from.
And there's also the question of the defense. Arizona is 10 times better defensively than what the Colts are right now, and that's why I'm picking Arizona.
And look up for the matchup. You got T.Y. Hilton versus Patrick Peterson, that's going to be the best matchup of the day to look out for. But yeah, I'm going with the Cardinals too, just for the fact that offensively, even without David Johnson, they still are much better offensively. And defensively, the Colts, they still don't have Vontae Davis. And that's a huge loss right now. So, and then the final game of the week, AFC North rivals, the Browns visiting the Ravens. Remember, the Ravens were the Browns. Then Art Modell decided in 1995 to take his team to Baltimore, which later became the Ravens. Quote the Raven nevermore.
Technically, the Ravens were the Browns, although in 1996, the Ravens
96, yeah.
Started operations as an expansion team, whereas the Browns were said to have been ceasing operations for 3 years.
And the Browns nearly won last week. You got to give up to Deshaun Kaiser. He did there were moments that were great in his performance in his first game, but there were also some terrible moments, like not having good pocket awareness.
Yep.
And now he's going up against a Ravens defense that I think is even better than what Pittsburgh had, honestly. Even though they had Joe Hayden still. It didn't matter. I think the secondary for Baltimore improved from last year with the signing of Tony Jefferson, getting Brandon Carr to go with Eric Weddle. It's going to be a tough day for him to throw to make any plays to Coleman and some of his other receivers. And then you look at the Ravens. Jeremy Maclin is going to be doing backflips against this Browns secondary. It's going to be a bloodbath. I'm going Joe Flacco and the Ravens. I cannot see in any scenario where the Browns actually win this game.
Yeah, I like Baltimore in this one as well.
And that's all the games of week 2. Now, the biggest game coming up for college football week 3, and I can't believe I'm saying week 3, the two biggest ones. My alma mater, Florida, hosting the Tennessee Volunteers in the Swamp, 3:30, game of the week for the SEC on
Great
CBS.
rivalry in the Southeastern Conference.
And you know what? Last year, the Gators lost for the first time after an 11-game streak that the Gators had. Last year, the Volunteers won. This time, the Volunteers are going to probably win again. I'm sorry. I don't see the Gators win this. I hope they do. And the biggest game, ABC, Sunday night, 8 o'clock, Clemson, the defending national champions, being visited by what I think is going to be the 2-time Heisman Trophy winner, Lamar Jackson and Louisville Cardinals. 8 o'clock.
Let's see what Lamar Jackson can do against the defending national champions right now. This could be his signature game of his college career, much less of the season.
Oh, yes. This is...
And he's also a guy who I think should be considered as a first overall pick in the NFL draft next year.
If the Jets get that, let's just say, right now they're 0-1. They need to lose 15 more, and believe me, they'll be guaranteed. And not only will they be guaranteed the first pick overall, but a lot of trade offers. You know that. That usually comes with having the first pick. But anyway, as for Lamar Jackson, last week he had over 500 combined yards last week on the ground and passing. He had a masterful performance in week 2. Let's see what he can do for an encore for this week.
Yep. And it's interesting that we mention some of the college games because the NCAA is at work in trying to put in a new rule regarding transfers. And because in years past, the rule was that if an athlete transferred from one school to another, they had to sit out a year. Now, they're trying to put together a rule where a kid who transfers can play the next season.
Which I think is fair, honestly. You know what? That's not right. For a player who wanted to go to a new school where he could see an opportunity happen, has to wait a year, and then what if, say, an injury happens or anything possibly can take place? That means his whole career is going down the drain.
Yep.
Just because of that rule. Now, at least, it gives these players a fair fighting chance of being able to play on their new team when they do transfer. And we've seen bunch of transfers and some other good games. We got Oregon and Wyoming. Why Josh Allen? He has to have a great performance. He's being touted as a first-round pick. We got Texas and USC. Still a great rivalry.
Yeah, there's even a couple games taking place right now. South Florida's playing Illinois. Temple's playing UMass.
I cannot wait for week 2 of the NFL. Are you excited, man?
I'm already happy it's here.
Well, folks, thank you for letting us go into your living room or bar or wherever, or restaurant, wherever you're watching the show.
Or even at home.
Or at home. Thank you so much for watching our show. This is for all the good people at CTV, for Mr. Kenneth Graham behind the booth, who is doing his magic as always, and Mr. Jamie, the sportsman Hickson, the legend himself. I'm Eric Rosen. We'll see you next week for another episode of The Blitz